Hello everyone, TMMgamer here, and today I have the pleasure of bringing you another one of my FIFA 13 tutorials. Now today's tutorial is going to be focusing on building attacks through short passing, because I've had a lot of messages over the past 2 or 3 weeks saying people really are struggling to keep the ball, move the ball up the field and start to create chances. So what this tutorial is going to cover is passing in between the two attacking thirds, so in the middle of the field, that you can use quite easily to begin to cut the opponents apart and move the ball up the field to start to create chances. So let's get right on with the tutorial. Now the first tip I'm going to show you is called the give and go, and this is the most simple tip you can use to improve your passing. Now as you can see, as the image pauses here, I've got my right back, in this case Ignacio Abate, on the ball, and he's highlighted now. Now as you can see, in behind the fullback there's quite a lot of space, so what you're looking to try and do is to get Abate into the space without having to run round or through the guy, because it's much easier to pass around opponents than it is to try and take them on through skill. So that's always the first thing you try. And the really easy thing with the give and go is it only involves 2 players. Now what you want to do is hold L1 or LB when you're powering up your pass, and what this does is, once your player's given the ball, release the pass, he will immediately go on a forward run, and he does this without you having to click L1 subsequently. So this is a really useful technique, because it means you can quite fluidly send players on runs. They can give the ball and immediately go on a run. Now, as you can see as I run the clip forward here, having made that give and go pass, so holding L1 and pressing X when you're doing the pass, and passing to an unmarked teammate just in field, you can really cut the guy out. Because what happened was, I've done the pass, my opponent tried to sweep in, make a challenge, it was never really on, and as you can see through the still image here, Abate now has the option to run into absolutely miles of space. So this is a really simple technique, and it works best when you've got 2 of your players and you can isolate one of your opponent's players, just as I did there. I had my right back Abate and a midfielder just inside, managed to isolate my opponent's fullback, and you just give the give and go, make the run with your first player, and you can pass the ball in behind just like that, and you can release your players into lots of space. So that's a really easy technique, but let's move on to some things that are a little bit more complicated. Now this next tip is called passing triangles, and the reason for this is because typically you use 3 players and you use the movement of all of these 3 players to confuse your opponent's defenders and get the ball in behind. But as you can see with the image paused here, my opponent's defence is a little bit better set up than it was the first time around, and this is the most important thing with this tip. The give and go is a very simple technique, but just as it's simple to do, it's a lot easier to defend than most of the other passing techniques. So what you'll see is some players begin to adapt to the give and go and begin to expect it. But the great thing about the passing triangles technique is it still enables you to get that player behind your opponent's line of defence, but because it's slightly more complicated and there's a few more passes, it's a lot harder for your opponent to pick up, because he's expecting that straight give and go, and this little switch up in tactics is a lot harder to defend than the simple give and go. So it's the next step up. Once you've got the give and go down, you move on to this technique. Now, as I run this clip forward slowly, you can see that I play the ball into my right midfielder, and as he receives the ball, my opponent's fullback begins to push up and put pressure on him. Now, as you can see, just as before, this has left a big space in behind the fullback, but the difference this time is the initial player who made the pass is being covered by another midfielder. So I can't just do the simple give and go, because the guy I want to run in behind the defence initially is marked. So this time what you do is you make a give and go pass with the right midfielder, and as you can see, the fullback got sucked up the pitch, enabling me to do a simple ball back to the guy who initiated the move, the one on the ball now. And as you can see, that one extra pass has forced my opponent's fullback to get sucked up the pitch to put pressure on my fullback who had the ball. And because he's done that, that's given my right midfielder, who he was initially marking, the ability to run in behind and get access to that space in behind the back 4. And then once you've done that, all it takes to release that right midfielder into space is one simple ball back to the guy who initiated the move, and he can just knock the ball down into that space behind the back 4, and it's very simple. So that was the triangle pass. The reason why it's called triangle pass, as you can see, was because 3 players are involved, and between them, all of their passes linked together make the shape of a triangle. And what you're looking to do is to get one of your opponent's players in the middle of that triangle and pass around him. And as you can see from here, By moving the ball around cleverly, it begins to pull your opponent's players out of position. And if you're using that give and go run by holding L1 with your players, you can suck a player out of position and then get another one of your teammates to run round into the space created, and then all it requires is one easy ball in and the guy's in space and he can move up the field. So this is the second tip. Really, really easy. Triangle passes. Once you've got your give and go established, try and move on to this and get some of these down. But once you're comfortable with this, there's one more level of tips I can give you to really move your passing level up, and at the same time make you a lot more difficult to counter on the defensive side. So let's move on to have a look at that part of the tutorial. Now this third tip uses all of the techniques that I've been teaching you earlier, the give and go pass, the manipulating of space by knocking the ball around to suck opponents out of position. So what I'm going to be doing in this one is just talking you through slow motion replays instead of going through all the bits and pieces of the technique, because everything I've shown you before is just put into use on this example here, but it's just moved up another step. Now as you can see, I've knocked the ball around a couple of times just to maneuver my first player who started the move off into space so that one simple ball can be put in behind and he can have a shot on target or put a cross in. And as you can see, this technique of triangle passing can be expanded even further by bringing additional players in, and always your aim is to try and bring one defender out of position to create that space behind the defence to get an attacker in, because it's a very hard proposition to break down a flat back four with midfielders sitting in front of them if they're static. So what you're trying to do, as you can see from all of these tips, you want to pull defenders up, you want to force them to come and close you down, and then by using the give and go run and pass, you can get your players moving forward and just link short passes together to get a guy moving in. And this is a very, very advanced example, and I wouldn't expect you guys to come up with passing moves like this straight off the bat, especially if this is a new technique to you. Slowly build up, just go with the give and go, then once you've got that going quite nicely for you, move up to the triangle passes, and then when you can regularly get those three players to work together to get a player running in behind, start to bring more players in. Because as you can see from this technique here, I completely turn a back four who was sitting quite nicely, letting me play in front of them. In just 4 or 5 passes, I can turn them all around, get them running back towards their own goal and cut them apart. So always what you're looking to do is try and get in behind. But at the same time, you're not just aimlessly passing it around. By manoeuvring the ball, you're trying to pull opponents out of position, and as soon as you see an opportunity to put a player in behind, for example, just coming up onto the clip here, you need to take it, because that might be your only chance. Your opponent might nick in and take the ball off you, or you might overcomplicate things and try a pass that's a little bit too difficult. So whenever you're using this short passing technique, try and take that very first opportunity you can to put the ball in behind the defence. Don't overcomplicate things. And if the give and go doesn't work, move it up to the short passing with the third player, the triangle passes. And if that doesn't work, try the fourth pass. And if that doesn't, try the fifth. But you're always trying to use as little effort as possible to break someone down. And that's the key thing about this tip. It's simplicity. All of the things you're doing here are short passes over 5 or 6 yards and sending a few teammates on runs. There's nothing too complicated here. But the great thing is when you combine all of these things together and all of the movements of your teammates together, you can manipulate the defense in such a way to get some of your teammates in behind. And that's the main aim of your attacking play. If you can get your opponent running back towards his own goal, or if you can slot your players through to put a cross in or to get a shot on target, you're going to score a lot more goals because you're creating a lot more chances. So I'm just going to bring the tutorial to an end here. I hope this little overview of short passing technique has really helped you, because it's quite useful, I think, just to sit down and have a look at the mechanics of how to break a defence down sometimes. Because you get some people online who are just one-trick ponies. They're going to try and punt it upfield, and if that doesn't work, they're sort of in trouble. But the great thing about this is you've got 3 techniques here which are all based on the same basic principles. So once you've mastered those principles, you can push your passing on to whole new levels very, very easily. And that's what I like. I like simple, repeatable tips that everyone can benefit from, and I really hope you guys have benefited from this. So once again, guys, I'd like to thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, it would make a big difference if you could click the like, give it a rating, because as I've said before, that enables more people to find it, and if more people can find it, hopefully they can enjoy it as well. So guys, once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.